Hello, David Zaritsky for the Bond Experience. Welcome back. I am joined by a good friend of mine, and we're going to have a very different conversation. Yes, I know you're used to me talking about locations and blazers and watches and cars and celebrities out now and then, but today we are going to talk about something a little bit more intellectual, a little bit more heady. And I needed a good friend who knows his onions about this to come. Frederic Liévain, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much. Hello to everybody.
Ah, bonjour, mon ami. Comment allez-vous?
Ça va bien, ça va très bien.
Ah, très bien, très bien.
La vie
So
en
that
France est un peu compliquée avec tous les couvre-feux, with all the lockdowns and restrictions, but we are holding on.
you always look good. You look good out of a pandemic and you look good in a pandemic. You know, I dressed up today. I'm usually wearing like a polo or something. I made sure to put on a pocket handkerchief for you, a good watch, Sea Island cotton shirt, blazer, because my friend, you are always beautifully dressed.
Thank you. You too. I saw you this morning with the navy blazer. It's you are very well shaped, so you really wear it. I would say like George Lazenby. Yes. Yeah.
I'll take that. I think he still cuts a good figure, that man.
Yeah.
All right. So, Frederic, you are going to be my guide through this discussion today because you and I started a very natural conversation that James Bond is not just about the lifestyle. It's not just about the movies. There's an interesting discussion around geopolitics. Let's start off with some basics, though, for those of the audience who are just dialing in. What is geopolitics?
Oh, geopolitics is a very important subject today, maybe more than before, and it was very important in the 20s and in the 30s. And Jan Fleming's life was, and even his family, his father and his grandfather were involved in many things, in a lot of, I would say, international events. They were involved in finance. They were involved in intelligence service somehow, because Jan Fleming's father was a deputy, conservative deputy during 10 years. He did the First War. He was a very close friend of Churchill, and also he was belonging to because they had some Scottish roots from, say, where they were bankers. Very good bankers. So they were a very, let's say, high social class family with lots of money, but they were really involved in many things. It was not a question of money. It was a question of doing incredible things. And they were traveling a lot at the time where people didn't travel. So they were aware of a lot of things and involved in politics. So let's say that they were involved in what I call the general interest. When you are a politician, you can be a good politician because if you are thinking of the interest of everybody, how to change. And Bond is trying to change the world all the time. He's just helping the people.
Do you think that Fleming wrote Bond as almost a megaphone to his geopolitical views that he's learned over time?
What do you mean by megaphone?
Well, so almost a filter. You know, he used Bond to tell the world a little bit about, you know, how he felt about geopolitics.
Yes, of course, because first, he was very influenced by his father, but his father died when he was something like 9 years old.
Ooh.
And yes, his father died in France, and then because of his position, Churchill made an incredible speech at the church. Then his father became very famous after his death. And Fleming's family, all the brothers were influenced by that, because Fleming was influenced by his older brother, who was also a great writer and an action man like Bond, involved in the army, more physical than Fleming. Then he wanted to be involved in different subjects. He became a reporter. He worked in finance. He was traveling a lot. One thing, I think in 1933, he was chosen to make an interview of a very famous Nazi. I think it was Goebbels. So yes, he made a 2 hours interview of Goebbels when Hitler has just started to be officially the chancelier. And so French, English were trying to understand, and Fleming met them. It's just amazing.
Wow.
And he was influenced when he was very young by that.
Unbelievable.
And Fleming at that time, when he was very young, he was 18, 19 years old, even younger, he was like Bond. He was, let's say, half of his personality and his education was based on classical, conservative things and education and background. And on another point, he was like Bond, he was doing on his own. He thought that many things were stupid, so he was in the best schools because his father, was there. He was belonging to a great family, so he was there and there in great schools. But he was kicked out, but not kicked out because he was stupid, not kicked out because he was a bad person, just kicked out because he was not in the frame. But he was more than the frame. But he was kicked out because he was doing things by himself, and he was maybe too clever and in advance. So he was in between, but at the end of the day, let's say the result was fantastic. Like Bond, most of the time he's doing things by himself. He's classical, but he doesn't obey to everything. But at the end of the mission, it's a success. And that's the life of young Flemings. The only problems with Fleming is that he died very young, even if he looked very old. He was just 56, my age. And he could have done much, much more incredible things if he had lived. But what he did is tremendous. I think that in life, what is important is not necessarily, a long life, is the intensity.
Right. Yes.
And he built an empire.
Yeah, it's the quality, not the quantity. And I have to tell you, you're so right as I'm listening to you, because as I think about how Fleming wrote Bond, Bond is kind of a man against the world, which is so attractive. It's wonderful to think of teams and allies and things like that. But in and of itself, the big linchpin of Bond is it's him. It's him and being resourceful. And the other thing is, he tends to be very dutiful to obviously Queen and country, but at the same time, he hates tea, which is a very kind of British, embracing of some of the traditions.
You're absolutely right. Bond hates tea because he likes black coffee, because Fleming was, let's say, very snobbish and traditional, and Fleming really liked the colonies. And I don't think that Fleming appreciated when after the war we all had to abandon, to give up with all our colonies. India, Algeria in 61, 62, Indochine, Vietnam, all those things. And Fleming didn't really like that. He wanted to keep that. And he said that the tea was let's say, the expression of trade, importing these things from India or other places. And that was the beginning of the decadence of England.
That's a great way to put it.
Really, myself, honestly, I don't like the taste of tea except green tea coming from Japan, because I'm a great fan of Japan. And so I think that was a provocating answer from Fleming, because he was also like Bond, a provocator, but he was sincere. If you see his last interviews at GoldenEye, he's really incredibly snobbish, right? And he was.
It's funny you say that too, because when I was in Jamaica just a few months ago, they were telling me stories. I mean, there were people that are still there that knew Fleming and knew the family and all the friends. And they said that Fleming embraced and deeply was protective of colonialism and really didn't want things to change that much. He liked his breakfast the way he liked it. He liked the environment, and the people that surrounded him said that he came off a veneer when people interviewed him as snobbish, but when the cameras stopped rolling, he was so kind to everybody that lived in Jamaica, and he truly had a love for them.
Yes, he was kind, like, let's say, like Roger Moore was very kind, but on a certain way, Sir Roger Moore looked like him on a certain aspect. Things that, let's be not political correct. We have to say the reality, the truth. And that has nothing to do with racism or whatever. It's just when you see a few pictures in GoldenEye, he had some, woman servants, I would say, roommate, when you have someone who is working for you at home, you know.
Oh, yes, like a housekeeper type.
Housekeepers. And
yeah.
they were a black woman, you know, dressed with the uniform, everything. For him, he was not racist at all, but he just thought that people had to be at their place. And when the people stayed at their place with their role, he was absolutely very, very friendly, very nice, very honest, and he was a very good person.
Yeah.
That he was in the tradition of England, like Roger Moore, because, you know, when Roger Moore was traveling for UNICEF, it's just only a few years ago. If you observe his trips to Roger Moore, okay, he was helping UNICEF, but just let's watch the way he was traveling, the way people were around him. He was like Fleming. Yeah. He was like, you know, a British aristocrat, you know. Yeah. He was coming from, let's say, the Victoria, you know, age, which started in 1837. She died in 1901. Of course, there was the Entente Cordiale that was made, you know. The Entente Cordiale was the, you know, we French people had a lot of problems with England, the 100 years war, which was a terrible thing. Somehow the real enemy of France were more England than Germany, long time ago. And we also had problems with them because the fact we helped Scotland, you know, what I have here is the old alliance. Mixed the flag between France, my country, and Scotland, because we saved their queen, and we took her we had her during 19 years in France, because Elizabeth I wanted to kill her. She was jealous because of her beauty, and jealous because of what the power of Scotland and the values of Scotland, and the geopolitical situation of Scotland at that time was incredible, and the resources in the ground of Scotland. And then that was a war, and we were very close. So French people have a very close relationship with Scotland. Scottish people like us, and England didn't like that. It's only because of the pressure of this incredible, this incredible man, the Prime Minister of Victoria Queen. It was around, I think, 1870, 1875, who really helped to rebuild what we call l'entente cordiale, the reconciliation between our two countries. Then Queen Victoria came in France. She built La Riviera in the south of France. All of that is based on the English style, and also in the north of Brittany, called Dinar, etc. And this prime minister called Disraeli, he was also at a certain time the lover of the Queen Victoria.
Oh,
you know, yes,
scandalous.
Yes, she was in love with her, because when she lost her incredible husband that she loved, I can't remember his name, but she loved him so much. They had a lot of children, but when she was alone, but he was young when she was alone, not like the Queen today, who is going to be 95. She was a loving woman, so she fell in love with her prime minister, Disraeli, who built with her the reconciliation with France, and that was very important. And Jan Fleming was completely, let's say, involved in that era. He was coming from that era, the 19th century, you know, colonies everywhere, India, you know, Bahamas, all those things. And Queen Victoria was traveling to Australia, the Commonwealth, and Fleming is coming from that, and Bond is still coming from that. I would say the exception now is maybe Daniel Craig. He has another position on Bond is a little bit different, but until, you know, Pierce Brosnan, it was the England of before. Let's say in England that does not really exist anymore, but doesn't exist anymore. I wouldn't say that so fast, because after the Brexit, I think that in a few years' time, we will see that England, Great Britain, with the help of United States and the ex-Commonwealth, they are going to be strong.
I like that.
Without the Europe, you know, the Europe pressure, all the people who have a negative point of view, you know, let's say, wow, England is going to be alone. They are going to lose a lot of money, etc. James Bond is just the image of an England that does not exist with the Brexit. They only have Bond as the, no. I think it's a very strong country.
Yeah, it's funny because, that whole, Bond is a relic of the Cold War. I'm using a quote from the movie. It's almost antiquated in of itself, because if I think about Fleming's writing, the villains that he created were ones that actually jeopardized or threatened, what he loved about the empire, about, England as this proud empire. And if you look at all the villains, he had so many themes that these people were out to, quote unquote, get England. In fact, some of his escapes every 2 to 3 months out of the year for him to write his books was really his way of going back to what he felt comfortable in, that colonialism, that traditional aspect of what England was, because he felt it changing. And I don't think that made him very happy at the time.
Absolutely, you're absolutely right, because at the end of the war in 46, when he was not a spy anymore, but he was a reporter, he had a wonderful job with a 2 months vacation every year to write his book and to live in Goldeneye. He had great income because he needed lots of money. He started to feel that England was losing the colonies. And after that, in the 50s, he started to see that we started to be involved in the Cold War. That was, his obsessions, except the colonies and the old England, was the fighting against the Nazi and Germany. Not only because the Nazi were horrible people, but because he was a snobbish England, saying, those German, what they think they are superior to England? I'm going to prove them they are inferior. We are superior. Who do they think they are? And it was also a snobbish way. His imagination was incredible because he was a technician, he was a strategic man, and he was also an artist. And when you are an artist, if somehow you are a businessman or a strategic, your imagination can do incredible things. And I think he said he wanted to write a spy story, which would be the fantasy, but which would be the globally what he had left, not only him, but with the other spy that he met. He met incredible people in the 30s and in the 40s working with him or for him, and that he met that influenced a lot his way of seeing espionage. And that's very important because we are still now, sat on these bases. And so after this obsession of the Nazi and Germany, it was the Cold War. That was his obsession. The communism, that was an obsession incredible. And then after that, when in the beginning of the 60s, when he was still writing a lot and traveling a lot, there is a book that is very important that people don't really know. It's The Thrilling Cities of Jan Fleming.
I love that book.
That's very important, and he was influenced by that, the You Only Live Twice, because when you see the Japan in You Only Live Twice, you see the Japan that was seen by Jan Fleming when he was traveling there. The mixture in 1966-67, the mixture of a very traditional Japan, very traditional culture of the old Japan, and the modernity, which was, there with a lot of power at that time. And that's incredibly, so culturally, You Only Live Twice is a very important movie. I like it very much. So that was his obsessions. Unfortunately, he died in 64, and I think he could have been, further and further, but that's the way it is, and he did great things.
He did. And you said something to me I want to explore with you. Last time we talked, and I agree, but I want to hear it from you. You said that Winston Churchill, without Winston Churchill, chances are we wouldn't have Bond because it influenced so much. Talk to me about that.
Yes. So your question and what you say is very important. I would say it's one of the most important bases. Churchill was an incredible man. He looked like James Bond a little bit and Fleming because let's say that, it's very important to explore also the psychology of the people, not only to see what they do, who they are. It's behind, in the head, in the mind, in the heart. And Churchill, was also an artist. He was a painter, he was a writer, and he was a very depressed man. Excuse me, they are in the other office, there are some
This is the real world. We live within our environments.
yes, and so yes, so Churchill was not only a cold politician man, he was like Fleming. He was a strategic man. He had met the First War. He was in great shape in the First War. He should have died hundreds of times, and he was lucky because. And he was also coming from a great family, which is linked to the Spencer, to so Lady Diana's family. There are some links, and he was a great friend of Fleming's father, and they were conservative together. And then in 1939, when Fleming's mother, who was, yes, let's say like a spider on her son. She was proud of her son, but also she wanted him to have, let's say, an emotional balance and a working balance, because he was living like a crazy. He was incredible. He was a dandy. His obsession was woman, sex, but not in a bad way. He was just living 200%. And in 38, 39, he was, at that time, he was working a little bit in finance. He was trying to manage, let's say the family money estate, the fortune of a great family. But he was doing great mistakes. He was sleeping late in the morning. He was arriving at the business lunch, but it was incredible. And at that time, her mother told him, you can't go on like that. You spend too much money. You spend much more. He was like Oscar Wilde somehow, Oscar Wilde also. That's very British. He was. And he was spending, so her mother said, no, you've got now to do something serious. And then she called Churchill, because the English people knew that the German were starting to be powerful. I think that the British people were the people, and the politicians were the ones who knew very much what was happening and the danger. Especially Churchill knew the danger of Adolf Hitler since 1933. Because Hitler was a bluffer. He was also an actor. He was also somehow an artist. So he was manipulating people, trying to, the English people knew exactly the danger and everything. And Churchill knew that. And Churchill, was called by Fleming's mother. And she said, can you help me? I want to find something for Jan, something that will be a compilation of all his qualities, because he has some qualities and skills. So he was called by Sir Godfrey M. And M proposed him a job for that. And what is incredible is that when he proposed him this job at the beginning, Fleming, who was snob, didn't say, "Oh yes." He said, "I'm going to think about it.
Oh my God.
I'm not in a hurry. Who do you think I am?"
Yeah.
And so what is important to know is that the government of England, let's say the Secret Service, already knew that Fleming was special and strange. Fleming was curious of everything. And there is a moment where he wanted to read everything. And that the book of Hitler, Mein Kampf, except the fact of what was written in it against the Jewish people, which was we don't have to talk about that. It was the most incredible, horrible thing. There was other things. It was the revenge against the Versailles Treaty in 1921 after the First War, which was objectively a humiliation of Germany. It was the punitions, maybe were too, and Fleming wanted to be aware of everything. And he got Mein Kampf, the book, in England, but that was brought to him in secret. And a spy from the Secret Service in England in 38, 39 saw the scene in a bibliothèque when Fleming got the book of Mein Kampf. But he wanted Mein Kampf just to read it, like you could read it, to know, to understand, and to be aware of everything, objectively. And it was just for that. But people thought that, like, you know, like lots of spies at that time, nobody knew exactly who was really, you know, for neutral or against the Nazi, because at that time there was no Facebook and things. Not everybody knew exactly all the details, but they thought that Fleming, because of what he was doing, you know, as a reporter, working in finance, all the things he did, that he might work or be, because he had been in Germany, in Switzerland.
Yes.
Before. He was skiing, ski champion. He was perfectly talking German. He was perfectly talking French. So in the 30s, he had, even at the end of the 1920s, his mother wanted him, because he was kicked out of all the British schools. He was sent in Kitzbühel. He was sent, you know, in Germany. So he met all of that. So they thought that he might have some, let's say, some strange curiosity with the Nazi power, which was absolutely untrue. He was just curious to know, like a spy.
Did they suspect that he was maybe a sympathizer?
Exactly. And then what happened when he didn't give his answer to come into and work in MI6? He was somewhere, and plenty of spies were around him, exactly like in License to Kill. When people are around Bond in Key West, you know, in what's the name of the writer?
Hemingway.
Ernest Hemingway's house. When everybody is around Bond and he escaped, it was exactly the same scene. And Fleming was, you know, catched and brought in an office, you know, like Bond in Skyfall when he's with the psychiatric, you know. And the one man, was a secret agent, said to him, "It's strange. You have Mein Kampf, you speak German, you have those skills, you have some strange attitude. So we propose you, we suggest you really to accept the proposition, because if you don't accept the proposition, you might have some problems. You might be are you a Nazi? Not fan, but you know." He said, which was true, "Not at all. I'm just curious of knowing everything." And then he came into that, and he found his way. He found what he loved to be, you know, an artist, a spy, and he was against the Nazi. And then he was like Bond, you know, he had missions. So at the beginning, he was more in the offices, you know, he was not physically in action, but he was physically in action after that. Not as much as Bond, but he did a few things.
So, I mean, I've got to ask this question then, knowing that Fleming's been through this, knowing that the books really reflect this, do you, as somebody that clearly, you know, sees all of this, do you see the politics in the movies represented as well?
Yes, of course, especially the first ones. The first one in the 60s, the Sean Connery ones and the George Lazenby ones. Just a detail, my favorite film, which is not necessarily the best film, I would say my favorite is On Her Majesty's Secret Service. That's a
great film, of course. Yes,
Bond, because there are many things. And so in the six first Bonds, they are the ones who are the closest to the books. In Dr. No, you have the subjects, you know, of the nuclear and the atomic problem. At that time, there were the scandal of la baie des cochons, you know, because of the warheads in Florida, and then and what the Russian had put in Cuba, you know, some nuclear weapons which could, you know, destroy the south of the United States. And because of the subject of Dr. No, they had to delay the film in the United States. The film was later in the United States because of the scandal with John Kennedy, etc. After, when you see From Russia with Love, you've got, yes, the Russian are really the bad ones. I have a few months ago, I did show to let's say, a few Russian women that I knew. I wanted to show them the From Russia with Love, and they say, oh, the image of Russia and Russian people is not good. We are presented like the bad, and linked to the Smersh, which is the contre-espionnage, Russian espionage, and Spectre. So you've got all the bad people from the communism and from the KGB working from Spectre against the West, against England, against Bond. And so there's only Goldfinger is not working for working for Spectre, but Goldfinger, I think he's supposed to be an ex-Nazi. Look the way he is. Look the way he talks. When there was the golden lingot, with the Nazi swastika.
That's right.
And so at that time, this man was something like, I don't know, maybe 60 years old, and it was just 20 years after the war. So he could be an ex-rich, snobbish Nazi. We don't know what he did, because the Nazis, did many things. There were even Nazis during the war who didn't make anything, who loved the art, who loved the people. It's very complicated. We have to be very careful, no cliche. And Goldfinger is connected to that. And that's incredible. After, when you see Thunderball, Thunderball also is completely involved in the problem of the nuclear problem here. Who is going to kill who? The West, the East, and they are using another power. And after you only live twice, it's the space, it's Japan, it's just amazing. And after that, in Her Majesty's Secret Service, there's the chemical problem with what Blofeld is doing. And some of them, when you listen to Dr. No, Dr. No says that the West is decadent, and also in Octopussy, they say that the West is decadent, and we are in '83.
Yeah,
and it's just amazing.
It lasted. If I look at everything after the Pierce Brosnan movies, the Brosnan ones, especially GoldenEye, even Die Another Day, obviously with Korea, they had some political undertones that would cause some of the conflict. But if you look at the Daniel Craig era, they really seem to step away from that a little bit.
Yes, absolutely. You're right. What you say is incredibly right and very important, because I think that since the 11th of September, the West world and the whole world is in great danger. And I secretly know that James Bond, let's say production, screenplay writers would like to involve Bond in very hot subjects. The hot subjects is, yes, the attacks problems that we have everywhere, and the problem they could bring Bond, in Israel, in Moyen-Orient, in East. They don't want to do that because they know that it could be a great danger. So they just invent, Spectre who has been back, is replacing the other real dangers that we really have since the 11th of December. And then for me, it's a little bit of shame. I would like them to take more risk, because let's say it's just cinema, but it's not only cinema, because we are going back to the subject of today, is that Bond, when you see Mission Impossible, Impossible Mission with
Tom
Cruise, that's pure cinema. But Bond is too much linked to the realities, even if it's romance. It's too much linked to the Queen. It's too much to the British Kingdom, to the power of the West, and to the big subjects, to Fleming, etc., and to the past. So they cannot go too far.
Right. I
regret it, because I think it would be nice to be a little bit more risky. But yes, with Craig, they have chosen different things. Quantum of Solace, that I don't really like, the subject was water. Water is very
Yes.
important. It's a very important subject.
Yeah. And the
Um,
Bolivia water issues, I mean, that was, people don't realize this. They go, water, what a crazy plot. But, I'm sure you know that, in Bolivia, there was actually a water war where people were, jacking up the prices of water. And Fleming himself, if you go back to Fleming, and you're a researcher of Fleming, you'll see that he always kept one foot rooted in reality and real world and one foot in fantasy, which made Bond so understandable by the populace. Today, I think, because we have a global commercial audience, it's almost like they don't want to offend anyone. So they make these kind of neutral bad guys. They're just maniacal people that have their own kind of mob-like mentality, as opposed to being rooted in the politics of a country, for example.
Yes, you're right, absolutely. And when you see, for example, I remember, yes, Living Daylights and Living Daylights, they tried to touch a little bit, let's say, the subject of Afghanistan, which was a problem in 1980, 81, when the Russian, came there. So they tried to create, let's say, a kind of fling because Bond is going there and etc. That was filmed in Morocco. When you see, I don't know, Skyfall, he's going back to his roots. The enemy is incredible, but when you listen to referring to what you said half an hour ago, when Silva, who is absolutely crazy,
yeah,
I love the only one plan when he's coming from the lift. It's like Orson Welles' film. There's only one shot.
Loved it.
It's very
that.
Orson Welles. So he's going down, he's coming, and he says, MI6, he's smiling, he's just, putting his head, MI6 is nothing. The British Empire is nothing. So James Bond, you're just a man of the past, you're just nothing.
You're living in a ruin and you don't even know it.
And so you should come with me and work with me, because you're losing your time with the kingdom, with the queen. And so they try to escape from the let's say the deep subjects in the Daniel Craig era. I don't know what is going to happen in No Time to Die. I unfortunately know a little bit the end of the film. I will not divulge it, but it's a surprise for everyone.
Yes.
So yes, the presence of Ian Fleming is very important today, because we are in a dangerous world, and everything is linked to what Fleming. He was a visionary. When you see Moonraker, it is an incredible film. It was supposed to be crazy 40 years ago, but now 40 years after, let's say that, the conquest of space, the things that we have to do, the conflict between the people on this planet. It's said that we are too many, and there are too many different populations cannot live, seems to not to be able to live together. So the idea of creating something else in another place, we have sent something on Mars now. So it would be nice maybe to live on another plane. Sean Connery did that in a movie. It was called not Meteor, it was called
Zardoz?
Outland.
Outland, yes.
Outland was in 1980, yes. So yes.
But you're right, Moonraker also, if you really go deep into it, you could say that Moonraker is a little bit of people's, want for beautification and perfection. It's like a metaphor of today where, he wanted to create a perfect society in a new place and eradicate the old one. And, they're you can almost think of that like a Nazism. It's kind of that whole idea.
Yes, Drax, he doesn't have the look Michel Lonsdal, but he was kind of Nazi. He didn't want to let's say to eradicate a kind of people. He wanted to eradicate everybody and just to create beautiful people, whatever, white or black. Because when you see, there are also black people,
True.
and he was also beautiful people, in space. And Irka was in there. She was to create a beautiful race, beautiful people. And on that point, yes, it was like it was a kind of an incredible Nazi, you know, a crazy one. And also he was criticizing the British society. Remember when he has
Yes.
this duet with Roger Moore when they are talking together, very cold,
Hmm.
in the Chateau de Vaux-le-Vicomte. He said, would you like some cucumber sandwiches? Roger Moore says no, Bond says no. And he said, would you like tea? The only thing that your cultural and country has brought to the West culture, something like this.
Yeah, he's talking smack about him. Yeah.
Horrible, because this is the only thing that your empire brought to the modern society.
Mm-hmm.
Tea that Fleming criticized so much.
Yeah, exactly. And even the point where Drax says, "Oh, you've come here to personally apologize for your government." You know, it's very passive aggressive.
Incredibly. And Roger Moore answers, an apology will be made after this and that.
Yes.
And this moment of the film is incredible. And I make just a little parenthesis saying that sometimes I like Roger Moore when he's very cold and when he's very serious.
Me too.
I tell you something, for me, when Roger Moore, because I met him many times, when Roger Moore is very serious and very cold, I would say that somehow he's the coldest one of the 6 actors. And Roger Moore is cold, he's handsome, but he has no expression. When he kills, when he's angry, there's no way to make a transaction.
Yeah.
And that's the mixture, because Roger Moore is in between incredible humor, sometimes maybe too much. And because Craig, people say, well, Craig is violent, Craig is strong. Craig, you see his emotions. You see that he has emotions. Roger Moore, when he does his mission, when he kicked out the car in For Your Eyes Only, many times when he's like this, my God, he is cold and strong. No transaction, no way. And
well, you know that I am all about being serious. But I got to tell you, I'm totally agree with you, seriously, because For Your Eyes Only is one of my favorite Roger Moore Bond films, because those serious moments when he turns into what you would imagine a secret agent / assassin would be like, you know, this coldness overcomes him. And then, but he's also adept enough to turn on the charm. I think Craig, I love Craig's portrayal, clearly, but I think that he's got an emotion, but I think he's got a coldness. But when it comes to like turning up the charm, I think Roger Moore has it over on him for that.
Absolutely, I would say that it's not a problem. What Craig is, that Craig maybe a lack of humor potential. The humor situation with Craig is only when the direction says, for example, when he's coming into the train in Skyfall, you know, he opens the door, he say, open that door.
Yeah.
That's a kind of humor, but this humor comes from the situation and not from him. And also, I would say that you feel, it's not a criticize, because I think it's important. I think that Bond is a reflect of today and the reflect of what was Fleming and Churchill. They were depressed men. Sometimes, like we are all, we have to accept our weaknesses. We cannot say that we are strong all the time.
Right.
And so Craig is wonderful for that. He shows that he's a killer, but he's also a human being. He's suffering from his youth. We can see that in Skyfall. Yeah. And he's strong, but he shows. Roger Moore never showed that. So that's, yes, the 2 opposite Bonds are really Roger Moore and Daniel Craig, for sure.
And it gives us variety. It gives us some interesting variety to do. So Frederic, I want to play a little bit of a game with you, but it will test your creativity. So bear with me with this. And I'm excited to try this out on you. So imagine, if you will, you've been a fan for a long time. You've been to events, rubbed elbow with celebrities, you study James Bond, and suddenly one day you get a phone call. You're like, I don't recognize the number. And it's Barbara Broccoli. And she says, Frederic, good to speak to you. Listen, we need ideas for Bond 26. We're all out of ideas, but we want this to be a political based one. We want this to be something that's very topical in the world. What would you choose potentially as something going on in the world that could be a basis for a James Bond movie?
So, sometimes I'm working with my oldest friend who is now, let's say, a famous French director who is crazy about Bond and crazy about the old cinemas. He's Orson Welles, Hitchcock is a Bible of cinema. He's the greatest. And with him, we sometimes work on the idea. So I have two ideas to answer to your questions. But one solution could be to come back to the 60s and to remake the first Bonds, to remake them. That would be difficult because you've got to go in the past and to build everything. That should be a good idea.
Would you make them closer to the books then?
I would make them, yes, close to the books, but with the, let's say, the energy and the realistic way of seeing things of today. You do Goldfinger. It's not to say we are going to make a better Goldfinger, because Goldfinger is fantastic.
Right.
But you make another version of Goldfinger and you try to make it stronger. It would be faithful to the original and to the books, but with the power of the reality of the expressions of today. That would be the first, let's say, solution. And the other solution would be to go back a little bit to what was, let's say, Connery, especially Roger Moore and Pierce Brosnan, because I think that people really want to come back to elegance, to an actor who would be really handsome. I don't say that Craig is not handsome. He's wonderful. I like him. He's very charming. He has an incredible face. He's a handsome man. But Roger Moore and Pierce Brosnan were perfect. Absolutely, like models. And Sean Connery was also very, very differently, but handsome. Dalton is very interesting now. I was a little bit forgetting him, and now I'm more turned on Dalton. It's very interesting, Dalton. But I would come back to what was Bond during the Moore and Brosnan years, and I would say to Barbara, I would talk like the Pope. I would say, don't be afraid. Try now to touch to the real subjects. Bring Bond in Dubai, bring Bond in Syria, bring Bond in Israel, bring Bond in Iraq, in Turkey, and work on the real subjects of today. Even if you make little romance, you work on another story which will not be exactly what we are living, but something close, and say it's just cinema. I would say, take the risk, please. I would do that. I would take the risk because Bond was very involved in reality in the 60s and the 70s, even if it was very romance, romance addition things, but it was close to any subjects. When you see Stromberg, for example, now I would go to those subjects without fear. I don't think that Eon production, would be under a bomb attack in London. I don't think so. So they should try to make a mixture, to be closer to the hot subjects, and also maybe not only on that, maybe on COVID-19. COVID-19 is a real revolution in our life. There are many subjects around COVID-19. You've got the COVID and the sick people, but you've got the changement of the society, the way we live, etc. And I think that we could work on a screenplay which would be totally linked on that. That's what I think.
I love it. I love it. I would buy a ticket to any one of those films. I promise you, for sure. Well, listen, we probably talk for hours about this, but this has been a wonderful taste. I would love to have you back on the show to talk more about this. And I know that we've got a watch one coming up in the future too. But I do hope
incredible subject. Yes,
you will talk for 3 hours on that one. But I will tell you this also. I I hope, of course, that maybe in September we'll see each other. Maybe we'll be allowed to travel, and we could actually share some drinks together.
With pleasure. I'm just scared about one thing. I think it's possible, it's risky that the film should be delayed again to 20.
Do you think so? Maybe, huh?
I'm not sure, but I think it's possible because the Brazilian variant is dangerous, and a James Bond has to be in the best position as possible to be successful in theaters. If you put 1% every 3-4 seats, it's complicated. And if you say the film will be like this during 4 or 5 weeks in theaters, and after it's on Netflix, etc., I'm not a fan of this solution. But James Bond is an exceptional film. So there are some little noises, that say that it might be possible. So they could release the film in April 22 to be, to have the real results of all the people vaccinated. And maybe my idea would be to say, okay, let's take the risk, let's take the chance. Let's wait one year and a half more, and let's release the film for the 60th anniversary in September 22 with an incredible, incredible event, including the tribute to Sir Roger Moore and Sean Connery, because they are the columns of the temple.
Yes.
Don't forget that they are the 2 columns that they are the best, the most important ones. They constructed Bond, and then that would be an incredible event throughout the world. And if they don't want to lose money, they could start to film the new Bond before. They should start, to work on the new film on Bond. I call it 27 because I include Never Say Never Again. Never Say Never Again belongs to MGM, So for me, it's 27. So they could work on Bond 27 and try to start to film, to invest and to be in a season in 20, the end of 21 and 22, that it would mean that when No Time to Die would be released, the Bond 27 would be nearly ready to be launched 1 year after. To gain money, because they have lost, I think they are losing $1 million every month.
That's what they say, yeah.
So they have to stop that, it's like the states who have an incredible amount of debt. So if they want to, I think they should do that.
I love the idea of a 2022. To your point, I mean, I think you could have months of celebrations around the 60th anniversary, obviously leading up to No Time to Die. The only thing is, I don't know if you heard this quote. I have it right here. I'll read it to you. It's a short quote, but Barbara Broccoli had said, we make these films for the audience. We like to think that they're going to be seen primarily on the big screen. But having said that, we have to look to the future. Our fans are the ones who dictate how they want to consume their entertainment. I don't think we can rule anything out because it's the audience that will make those decisions, not us. So I'm hoping that we do get that theatrical cinema release as opposed to just streaming, for sure.
Yep. We'll see. We'll know that, I think, within the next 2 months. Everything is changing very quickly. We'll see. But if it happens for the 60th anniversary, it's gone, and we have time to prepare incredible things.
Yeah.
In my new book.
Yes, which we're going to do a whole video on. Don't spoil that. Listen, Frederic, thank you so much for being on. Merci beaucoup. This has been so wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you to you again. Congratulations for everything you do on Bond. It's just incredible, and I really like your way of doing, and it's eclectic, amazing. You look like Craig. You're a little bit Bond. You have everything, and you work a lot on different things. That's great. That's great.
Thank you.
That's international.
Thank you so much, and thanks. Well, I appreciate that. I do. And of course, for all of you watching, this has been David Zaritsky for the Bond Experience, and we'll see you all real soon. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching this episode. If you want to be up on the latest from the Bond experience, just click on this subscribe and subscribe to our channel. You're going to get all the latest and greatest information, plus some exclusive content. And by the way, speaking of content, here's something especially for you, just because we know you. Talk to you soon.